Haunted Thanksgiving at Parker House. The Parker family had inherited the plantation from a distant relative, eager to experience the grandeur of a traditional Thanksgiving celebration. But as the festivities commenced, an unsettling feeling began to creep over them, a sense of unease that grew with each passing moment. The first sign of trouble came when the grandfather clock in the hall began to chime incessantly, its relentless tolling echoing through the house. The Parkers exchanged uneasy glances, their hearts pounding in their chests. As the clock's chimes grew louder and more insistent, a strange chill settled over the room. Suddenly the house lights flickered and died, plunging the plantation into darkness. The Parkers fumbled for candles, their voices echoing in the oppressive silence. As they huddled together in the flickering candlelight, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night, sending shivers down their spines. One by one, the Parkers vanished into the darkness, their desperate cries swallowed by the silence of the house. The remaining family members searched frantically, their fear mounting with each passing moment. But the old plantation seemed to absorb them, its walls closing in on them like a living entity. In the panic-stricken chaos, the Parkers stumbled upon a hidden room, a secret chamber concealed within the plantation's depths. Inside, they found a collection of ancient artifacts, each one radiating an aura of malevolence. As they touched the artifacts, a wave of terror washed over them, their minds assaulted by images of unspeakable horrors. The family quickly realized that they had stumbled upon something dark and sinister, something that had been hidden away for centuries. As they moved deeper into the hidden room, they saw that the artifacts were arranged in a particular order, and that each piece represented a different aspect of evil. The first artifact was a small, intricately carved box that seemed to pulse with a dark energy. As they touched it, a wave of nausea washed over them, and they were enveloped in a vision of a shadowy figure creeping through the woods, hunting its prey. The second artifact was a rusted, medieval-looking dagger, its blade covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and writhe. As they picked it up, they were filled with a sense of dread, and they could almost feel the dagger's thirst for blood. The third artifact was a black, obsidian mirror, its surface rippling ominously. When they looked into it, they saw a reflection of a place that they could not quite recognize, a place shrouded in darkness and despair. It was a place where the dead walked and the living quaked in fear. As they reached for the fourth artifact, a strange voice echoed through the room, a voice that seemed to come from beyond the grave. "You should not have come here," the voice whispered, sending shivers down their spines. The Parkers froze, their eyes widening in terror. The voice seemed to be coming from all around them, its words reverberating through their very souls. Suddenly, the artifacts began to glow with an otherworldly light, their energy merging into a blinding vortex of power. The Parkers were caught in its grip, their bodies writhing as they were transported to another realm. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves in a world of darkness and shadows, a world that reeked of decay and death. Above them, a blood-red moon loomed, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. The voice spoke again, its words cold and menacing. "Welcome to the other side, Parkers. You have unlocked the gateway to the realm of the dead. And now, you shall never leave." The Parkers looked at each other in horror, realizing the grave mistake they had made. They were trapped in a world of darkness, with no hope of escape. The artifacts they had touched had brought them to this place, and now they were at the mercy of the forces that controlled it. As they stumbled through the bleak landscape, they heard the sound of footsteps behind them, the footsteps of creatures that lurked in the shadows, waiting to pounce. They knew that they had to find a way out, and fast, before they became trapped in this world forever. But as they searched for an escape, they realized that they were not alone. There were others in this world, others who had been trapped here like them, and these others were not friendly. The Parkers soon found themselves surrounded by a group of ghoulish beings, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly hunger. The creatures advanced on the family, their sharp claws glinting in the moonlight. The Parkers stumbled back, their backs pressed against a decaying tree. One of the creatures lunged forward, its jaws gaping wide, ready to sink its teeth into the soft flesh of the family. But just as the creature was about to strike, a figure appeared out of nowhere, wielding a gleaming sword. With a swift motion, the figure sliced through the creature, its body disintegrating into dust. The rest of the creatures retreated, their eyes darting fearfully towards the figure. The figure turned towards the Parkers, revealing a face that was both beautiful and terrifying. It was a woman, with long flowing hair the color of fire, and eyes that glowed with an otherworldly light. She wore a suit of armor that seemed to ripple and shift, as if made of liquid metal. "Do not be afraid," the woman said, her voice like a soft, warm breeze. "I am Morgana, the keeper of the gateway. I have been watching you, Parkers, and I believe that you hold the key to our freedom." The Parkers looked at each other in confusion, unsure of what the woman meant. "You touched the artifacts, did you not?" Morgana asked, her eyes piercing them with an intense gaze. "You have unlocked the power of the gateway, and now you have the ability to control it." The Parkers realized what she meant, their minds racing with possibilities. If they could control the gateway, they could use it to escape this world, to return to their own realm. "But how do we control it?" one of the family members asked, his voice trembling with fear. Morgana smiled, a wry grin playing on her lips. "That, my dear, is something that you will have to learn for yourselves. The power of the gateway is not something that can be easily controlled. It takes great strength and willpower to wield it, but I will help you, guide you through the process. Together, we can find a way out of this world and back to yours." The Parkers felt a glimmer of hope stir within them, a sense that they might be able to escape after all. They looked at Morgana, saw the determination in her eyes, and knew that she was their only hope. "Teach us," they said in unison, their voices ringing with resolve. "Teach us to control the gateway, and we will use it to escape this world." Morgana nodded, her eyes glowing with a fierce intensity. "Very well, but be warned, Parkers. The power of the gateway is not something to be trifled with. If you misuse it, you could unleash forces beyond your control, forces that could destroy everything you hold dear." The Parkers nodded, their eyes fixed on Morgana, their determination growing with each passing moment. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but they were willing to do whatever it took to escape this world. Morgana led them through the twisted landscape, showing them the secrets of the gateway and teaching them its ways. Together, they delved deeper into the realm of the dead, their minds and bodies tested at every turn. But as they learned more and more about the power of the gateway, they realized that there was more at stake than just their own survival. They had the ability to control the gateway, to wield its power for good or for evil, and they knew that there were others out there who would stop at nothing to get their hands on that power. As they moved closer to mastering the gateway, the Parkers knew that they would have to face their greatest challenge yet. They would have to confront the forces that sought to control the power of the gateway, forces that were willing to destroy everything in their path to achieve their goals. Morgana prepared them for the battle ahead, honing their skills and sharpening their resolve. They trained tirelessly, preparing themselves for the confrontation that was to come. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. The Parkers stood at the edge of the gateway, ready to face their enemies and unleash the full power of the gateway. They knew that the battle ahead would be the greatest challenge they had ever faced, and that victory was far from certain. But they also knew that they had come too far to turn back now. They had to fight, to protect the power of the gateway, and ensure that it was used for good, not evil. The battle raged for hours, with both sides trading blows and unleashing their full power. The Parkers fought with all their might, their bodies and minds pushed to the limit. But they refused to give up, refused to let their enemies control the gateway and use it for their own nefarious purposes. At last, the tide of the battle turned in their favor. The Parkers unleashed the full power of the gateway, channeling it into their weapons and their bodies. The forces of evil were thrown back, their bodies disintegrating into dust as the power of the gateway consumed them. The Parkers stood victorious, their bodies and minds exhausted but their spirits soaring with triumph. They had saved the power of the gateway, ensuring that it would be used for good and not evil. Morgana appeared before them, a look of pride on her face. "You have done well, Parkers. she said, her voice filled with admiration. "You have proven yourselves worthy of the power of the Gateway, and I am proud to call you my allies." The Parkers smiled at each other, their hearts filled with a sense of accomplishment. They had faced their greatest challenge and emerged victorious, and they knew that they could face anything as long as they had the power of the Gateway at their disposal. But as they prepared to leave the realm of the dead, they felt a sense of longing in their hearts. They had seen so much in this world, experienced things that they never thought possible. And they knew that they could never forget the things they had seen and learned. Morgana seemed to sense their feelings, and she smiled at them knowingly. "You have been changed by the power of the Gateway," she said. "But take heart, for you will always carry a piece of this world with you. And who knows, perhaps one day you will return to this realm to use the power of the Gateway for good once again." The Parkers nodded, their minds and hearts filled with a sense of awe. They had learned so much in this world, and they knew that they could use that knowledge to make a difference in their own realm. They stepped through the threshold, returning to their own world, feeling a sense of accomplishment and determination that they had never felt before. For years, the Parkers used the power of the Gateway to do good in their own world. They fought against injustice and evil, using the knowledge they had gained from their experiences in the realm of the dead to make a difference in their own realm. Harvest Horror. The small town of Harmony was known for its annual Thanksgiving Harvest Festival, a celebration of community and togetherness. But this year, the festival took a sinister turn, transforming the once joyous occasion into a night of unspeakable horror. As the townspeople gathered around the bonfire, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames, a strange mist began to descend upon the town square. The mist was thick and impenetrable, its tendrils reaching out and enveloping the unsuspecting townspeople. One by one, the townspeople vanished into the mist, their screams echoing through the square. Panic quickly set in as the remaining residents tried to make sense of what was happening. Was it a freak weather phenomenon? A gas leak? Or something much more sinister? As the mist cleared, the townspeople were horrified to discover that over half of their neighbors had disappeared without a trace. Among the missing were several children, including the young daughter of the town's mayor. The investigation that followed yielded no answers. The only clue was a single set of footprints leading away from the town square. The footprints were small, like those of a child, but whoever they belonged to was nowhere to be found. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but the mystery of the Thanksgiving Harvest Festival remained unsolved. The townspeople never forgot the horrors they had witnessed that night, and they never again celebrated the festival that had once brought them so much joy. But as the years passed, a new generation of residents moved into Harmony. They heard the stories of the Thanksgiving Harvest Festival and the unspeakable atrocities that had taken place. But they refused to let fear rule their lives. They decided to revive the festival, to bring back the tradition that had once been the heart of their community. The preparations for the festival began in earnest, and the town square was decorated with bright lights and colorful banners. The townspeople eagerly awaited the day of the festival, eager to create new memories and to celebrate their community once again. But as the day of the festival approached, strange occurrences began to take place. The decorations that had been securely fastened to the lampposts and buildings were found ripped apart, as if by a wild animal. Strange symbols were etched into the doors and windows of the shops and homes that surrounded the square. The townspeople tried to brush off these incidents as minor pranks, but deep down, they knew that something wasn't right. They felt it in the air, a looming sense of unease that grew stronger with each passing day. And as the night of the festival finally arrived, that unease turned to terror. As the townspeople gathered around the bonfire, they felt a chill run down their spines. The same mist that had descended upon the town square years ago had returned, but this time it was different. This mist was darker, thicker, and seemed to pulsate with a demonic energy. As the mist enveloped the townspeople, they heard a sound that made their blood run cold, the sound of laughter. It was a child's laughter, but there was something off about it. It was too high-pitched, too manic, and it seemed to be coming from all around them. Suddenly the mist cleared, and the townspeople saw what had been hiding in the shadows all along. A group of children stood before them, all of them wearing sinister smiles that stretched unnaturally across their faces. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light and their skin was ashen. These were not ordinary children, but something far more sinister. The townspeople tried to run to escape the grasp of the children, but they found themselves rooted to the spot. It was as if the children had cast a spell over them, binding them to the town square. One of the children stepped forward, a girl with pale skin and jet-black hair. Her eyes were the color of a winter sky, and they seemed to bore into the townspeople's souls. She spoke in a voice that was both childlike and ancient, her words echoing through the square. "We have returned," she said, her lips curving into a wicked smile. "We have come to claim what is rightfully ours." The townspeople trembled in fear, knowing that they were at the mercy of these beings. They had reawakened something that should have been left dormant, and now they would pay the price. As the night wore on, the children continued to torment and terrorize the townspeople. They played cruel pranks, causing the decorations to come to life and attack those around them. They whispered dark secrets into the ears of those they came into contact with, secrets that would haunt the townspeople for years to come. The children seemed to enjoy reveling in the chaos and destruction they had wrought. But there was a purpose to their actions, a reason they had returned after all these years. As the night drew to a close, the children vanished into the mist once again, leaving the townspeople shaken and traumatized. They knew that they would never again try to revive the Thanksgiving Harvest Festival. The townspeople needed to find a way to stop the children from returning, from wreaking havoc on their community. They needed to uncover the truth behind the sinister force that had taken hold of their town. And so, the townspeople banded together to unravel the mystery of the children and the strange mist that had descended upon Harmony. They pored over old books and records, searching for any clue that might help them understand what had happened. Their search led them to a small, forgotten cemetery on the outskirts of town. There, they found a gravestone with a single name etched upon it, Sarah. Digging deeper, they soon uncovered the chilling truth behind Sarah's story. She had been a young girl who had been accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake centuries ago. Her spirit had lingered, seeking revenge on the descendants of those who had wronged her. Armed with this knowledge, the townspeople prepared for the children's return. They set up protective wards and spells, hoping to keep the malevolent spirits at bay. Finally, the night of the Thanksgiving Harvest Festival arrived once more. The townspeople gathered around the bonfire, their eyes scanning the mist that was slowly creeping in. But this time, they were prepared. They had brought with them their own weapons, silver bullets and iron chains to defend themselves against the evil spirits that had taken hold of their town. As the mist descended upon them, the townspeople were ready. They stood their ground, their weapons at the ready, waiting for the children to appear. And appear they did. The children emerged from the mist, their eyes glowing with an unholy light. But this time, the townspeople were not afraid. They fought back with everything they had, striking the children with their weapons and casting spells to weaken their powers. In the end, the children were defeated, banished back to the wicked realm from which they had come. The town of Harmony was no longer haunted, and the Thanksgiving Harvest Festival was able to once again return to its former glory. But the townspeople never forgot the horrors they had witnessed. They knew that they had been lucky to survive, that they had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. They vowed to never forget the lessons they had learned, to always be vigilant, and to never let their guard down. And so the years passed, and a new generation of residents moved into Harmony. They heard the stories of the Thanksgiving Harvest Festival and the dark forces that had once threatened their town. But they also heard of the bravery and determination of their predecessors, and they were inspired to carry on their legacy. The festival continued to thrive, bringing the community together in a celebration of life and joy. And though the memory of that fateful night lingered in the back of their minds, the townspeople knew that they were stronger for having faced their fears. For in the end, it was not the darkness that prevailed, but the light of hope and courage that shone bright in the hearts of the people of Harmony. The Cursed Stocking. In the heart of a picturesque town named Glenmore, nestled between rolling hills and whispering forests, lay an ancient dwelling wrapped in secrets, the Weatherford Manor. It stood as a monument to forgotten tales that were etched deep into its time-worn walls, the greatest of which was not spoken aloud. Within this abode, an enigmatic artifact laid concealed beneath layers of dust and cobwebs, awaiting someone bold enough to seek it out. The cursed stocking, kept within the confines of the manor's attic for centuries, was said to possess an evil power that summoned misfortune upon all who dared touch it. Legend spun a macabre yarn of the stocking, a ghastly heirloom passed down through the Weatherford lineage. The eldest son would be blessed with prosperity, while his younger brothers would suffer a lifetime under its curse. Many dismissed it as a foolish tale, a figment of superstitious minds. However, when the Hawthorne family moved into the manor, they brought with them 2 sons from their previous home on the outskirts of Bennington Woods. The Hawthornes were lured by the manor's ornate architecture and an alluring charm reminiscent of their childhood home near Tall Oaks Forest. Injured birds flocked to their window as if being called by some unheard voice that whispered only to them, kept hidden from their father's knowledge, until one night when he discovered them tending to a winged creature. Curiosity led them into long-forgotten corners filled with treasures left behind by generations past. Amidst dusty relics and forgotten trinkets in the manor attic's depths, they encountered a knitted marvel made from countless threads that seemed to writhe in silent agony, the cursed stocking. Unaware of its maleficent nature or how it arrived there, they hung it above the hearth to honor an old tradition carried forth by generations long gone before them. From that night on, the Hawthorne family's fortunes shifted in an ominous and foreboding direction. The eldest son, Alexander, basked in the glow of prosperity, while his younger brother Isaac fell prey to sorrow and hardship. Isaac's once cheerful countenance darkened, and his laughter turned into sobs that echoed through the halls of the manor. His once robust health dwindled, and he became a shadow of his former self, haunted by some unseen force. As the months passed, strange things began to happen within the Weatherford Manor. The ticking of the grandfather clock grew louder, and the portraits on the walls seemed to follow the Hawthornes' every move. Whispers echoed in empty rooms, and cold drafts blew through closed doors. The Hawthornes dismissed these occurrences as their overactive imagination, but they could not ignore the ill fortune that befell them. One day, while Alexander was out riding his horse, he encountered a beggar on the side of the road. The man was emaciated, with sunken eyes and a haggard appearance that spoke of a life of hardship. Alexander felt compelled to help the man and offered him a place to stay at the manor. The beggar accepted, and Alexander brought him back to the manor, where he was given food and a warm bed. But as the days passed, strange things began to happen. The beggar's presence seemed to exacerbate the malevolent energy that already surrounded the manor. Isaac's already fragile state deteriorated further, and objects began to move on their own. The Hawthornes realized too late that the beggar was not what he seemed. One night, as they sat around the fire, the cursed stocking above them, the beggar's true identity was revealed. He was not a mere vagrant, but a powerful sorcerer who had been searching for the cursed stocking for years. His arrival at the manor was no coincidence, but a calculated move to retrieve the damned object. The Hawthornes had unknowingly kept the cursed stocking in their possession, and the sorcerer was determined to have it. The family pleaded with the sorcerer to spare them and take the cursed stocking without harm. But the sorcerer was not interested in mercy. He cast a spell that plunged the manor into darkness, and the Hawthornes were left defenseless against his dark magic. Isaac, who had been weak and frail up until now, suddenly stood up, his eyes blazing with a newfound strength. He faced the sorcerer with determination, knowing that the fate of his family rested on his shoulders. Isaac's body began to glow with an otherworldly light, and he unleashed a powerful blast of energy that sent the sorcerer flying across the room. The sorcerer lay on the ground, wheezing and weak. Isaac approached him, his eyes glowing with a fierce determination. He stood over the sorcerer, who was now at his mercy. Isaac knew that he had to act fast before the sorcerer regained his strength and retaliated. Isaac looked down at the sorcerer with a ferocity that he had never felt before. He could feel the cursed stocking pulsing in his hand, as if it was guiding him towards its ultimate fate. With a flick of his wrist, Isaac cast a spell that engulfed the sorcerer in a bright white light. The sorcerer screamed as he writhed in pain, his body convulsing violently. Isaac watched with a mix of horror and fascination as the sorcerer's body disintegrated before his very eyes. The sorcerer's flesh melted away, leaving nothing but a smoking pile of ash on the ground. It was a gruesome end for a man who had once been so powerful. As the smoke cleared, Isaac felt the power coursing through his veins, a newfound strength that he had never experienced before. With the cursed stocking still in his hand, Isaac had accomplished what his family had failed to do for generations. He had rid their home of the cursed object and defeated the sorcerer who had sought to claim it for himself. But as Isaac looked around the manor, he realized that the damage had already been done. The walls were charred and blackened, furniture was overturned and shattered, and his family lay injured and unconscious on the ground. It was then that Isaac realized that his newfound power came with a heavy price. Isaac sank to his knees, the weight of his responsibility crushing him. He knew that he would have to use his newfound strength to rebuild what had been destroyed and protect his family from any future threats. But at the same time, he couldn't help but wonder if the power he wielded would ultimately consume him as it had consumed the sorcerer. As he sat there contemplating his next move, Isaac heard a faint whisper in the back of his mind. It was a voice he didn't recognize, but it spoke to him with a soothing tone, promising to help him achieve his goals. Intrigued, Isaac listened closely as the voice continued to speak. It revealed itself to be a powerful entity that had been watching over him for years, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. It claimed that it could help him harness his newfound power and use it to protect his family and bring glory to his name. Isaac was skeptical at first, unsure of whether or not to trust this mysterious being. But as the voice continued to speak, Isaac felt a sense of comfort and reassurance wash over him. He knew that he could not face the challenges ahead alone, and the idea of having a powerful ally by his side was too tempting to ignore. With a deep breath, Isaac accepted the entity's offer, and he felt a surge of energy flow throughout his body. The voice spoke again, instructing him to close his eyes and concentrate on the power within him. Isaac did as he was told, and a vision appeared in his mind's eye. He saw himself standing on a mountaintop, surrounded by a sea of enemies. But instead of fear, Isaac felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. He felt a surge of power flow through him, and he knew that he would emerge victorious. The vision faded, and Isaac opened his eyes. He looked down at the cursed stocking still clutched in his hand, and he knew that he had to destroy it once and for all. He stood up, feeling stronger than ever before, and made his way to the fireplace. With determination, he threw the evil object into the flames and watched as it burned away to ashes. Isaac turned to leave the room, knowing that he had a lot of work to do to repair the damage that had been done. But as he walked towards the door, he heard the voice speak to him once more. "I will always be with you, Isaac," it said. "Together, we will conquer all who stand in our way." Isaac smiled, feeling a newfound sense of purpose. For he was not alone in this fight, and he was ready to do whatever it took to protect those he loved. Isaac stepped boldly out of the room, every step solidifying the strength inside of him. His decision to accept the entity's offer filled him with a confidence that surged through his veins like liquid fire. His face twisted into a maniacal grin as he looked ahead, eagerly anticipating the formidable obstacles yet to come. With newfound courage and unbridled ambition, Isaac moved forward into his future. Lonely memories. The old woman sat alone in her rocking chair, her gnarled hands clutching a worn photograph. The photograph depicted a young family, their faces smiling with warmth and joy. But as the old woman gazed at the image, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. The old woman's name was Martha, and the photograph was a reminder of a time long gone, a time when her life was filled with love and laughter. But now, she was alone, her family scattered to the winds, her heart heavy with loss. As the sun began to set on Thanksgiving Day, casting long shadows across her living room, Martha felt a sudden chill run down her spine. She looked around the room, her eyes searching for the source of her discomfort. Suddenly she saw it, a dark figure standing in the corner of the room, its eyes glowing with an eerie red light. The figure was tall and gaunt, its body shrouded in a dark cloak. Martha's heart pounded in her chest as the figure approached her, its footsteps echoing through the silent house. Martha tried to scream, but no sound came out of her mouth. She was frozen in terror, her eyes wide with fear. The figure reached out its bony hand, its touch as cold as ice. Martha closed her eyes, waiting for the worst. But the touch of the figure was gentle, almost comforting. When she opened her eyes, she found herself enveloped in the figure's embrace, its cloak surrounding her like a warm blanket. Who are you?" Martha whispered, her voice shaking. "I am Death," the figure replied, its voice deep and resonant. "But do not fear, Martha. I am not here to take you. I am here to offer you a gift." "A gift?" Martha repeated, confused. "Yes," Death said, "a gift. I have been watching you, Martha, and I have seen the pain and loneliness that weighs on your heart. But your time is not yet finished. You still have many years ahead of you, and I do not wish for you to spend them alone. So I offer you this gift, a second chance at love." Death gestured towards the photograph in Martha's hand, and suddenly it began to glow with a warm light. "Think of the person you love the most in this photo," Death said. "Close your eyes and concentrate on their face." Martha did as she was told, and soon she saw the face of her husband, long since departed from this world. As she opened her eyes, Death stepped back, and Martha saw a figure in the shadows, slowly taking shape. It was her husband, young and vibrant just as she remembered him. Martha's heart swelled with emotion as she ran towards him, and he caught her in a warm embrace. They kissed, and Martha felt her body fill with warmth, as though her heart had suddenly been reignited. "Thank you," Martha whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you so much." Death stood in the corner watching them with a sense of satisfaction. It was moments like these that made the job worthwhile, when he could offer someone a chance at happiness, even if it was only temporary. As Martha and her husband embraced, Death faded away into the shadows, his work done for the night. But little did Martha know that Death's gift was not just a one-time occurrence. Every Thanksgiving, Death would return to her home, offering her the chance to spend the holiday with her loved ones, both living and departed. And each time Martha's heart filled with joy and gratitude, knowing that she was never truly alone. As the years went by, Martha eventually passed away, content in the knowledge that Death had given her a life filled with love and family. And as Death escorted her to the afterlife, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and satisfaction, knowing that he had made a difference in someone's life. For Death, it wasn't about taking lives. It was about giving them purpose and meaning, even if it was just for a fleeting moment. And as he continued on his eternal journey, Death knew that he would always remember Martha, the woman whose heart he had touched on that Thanksgiving day so many years ago.